Yo guys, what is up? Max on our Path of Exile 2 video, and today we've got an update to our just in general build guides. Whether you're following the lightning arrow build or the ice shot build, this information will pertain to you, and it is very important, and it's also going to save you a bunch of currency on crafting the build. So there's some really cool things that we can talk about today. Now obviously the patch just happened, and people were a little worried that our build was going to get nerfed with the note about meta gems not gaining energy. I can now confirm that that didn't affect us at all. That was only for builds that were using multiple cast on things. So if you had a cast on minion death triggering a cast on freeze triggering a cast on crit, if you were using multiple cast ons, that could have affected your build. We're only using a cast on crit or cast on shock, and so that doesn't affect us at all. The build is feeling incredible after the changes. With the more density in maps, we've been blasting. But one of the big things that I wanted to make this update video on is because there's a new tool out called Path of Building. Now, this is in its very, very early stages. Unfortunately, it doesn't fully work for our build, but it's a build calculator that allows us to directly kind of test our DPS and test weapon upgrades and kind of see where we can min-max the most of our damage and survivability for the build. So there's a lot of things that we can mention with this. So I'll probably have a few more videos talking about Path of Building, as it is a tool that we're going to be using for our builds going forward. But the number one thing that I found from messing around with the calculator so far is that crit runes in every single scenario that I've tested are better than iron runes or physical damage runes on our bows for this build. Now, I kind of knew that crit damage was gonna be better. I had an assumption that it was gonna be better, but it's so impossible to buy bows on the marketplace that aren't socketed or are socketed with crit damage bonus. No one's actually doing this. And so now with this new update, we can freely swap our runes out. And so I swapped my fizz runes on my bow to crit damage runes, and I gained about an extra 6,000 damage on my ice shot. So pretty solid damage increase. And obviously that damage increase is going to be way more noticeable once we're bossing and we have an Eye of Winter, so we're getting a ton more crit chance. But I basically gained 100% crit damage bonus just from putting these runes in. So now I have a 613% crit damage bonus for my ice shot. Unfortunately, currently when we go to the Path of Building planner, this, as it stands right now, it's a very early version, does not work for calculating the DPS of our lightning rods. It can't actually calculate lightning rods getting triggered by our lightning arrow or being triggered by ball lightnings. You can only calculate the DPS of lightning rods literally landing on an enemy, so how much damage they do landing on enemies. So just for this specific test, we're just going to be using ice shot. You could use lightning arrow. It's literally the same results. But basically, I've imported 6 different variants of my bow, and I kind of wanted to show you this. So this is my bow, but with fizz damage runes, and we're at 363 DPS. This is my bow with crit damage runes, and we go to 382. By the way, the reason the number is different in Path of Building versus the in-game is Path of Building can actually take into account different scenarios. So for example, we can set the enemy to full health here, and we can set it so that we've crit recently. Obviously, in our build, we get a ton of extra damage from things like Crashing Wave if we've dealt a crit recently, and all of these nodes is another 70% damage if we crit recently. So in Path of Building, we can actually set up a more realistic scenario to actually see our real DPS. But just to go over this real quick, so Fizzbow, I lose on this setup with a Fizzbow, we go down to 737 fizz damage, and then with the crit I go to 393. And then I wanted to test what happens if we take off crit damage bonus, because my bow inherently has a crit damage bonus. So if we look at a bow that we're adding crit damage runes to that doesn't have any crit damage, I'm at 320,000. And then if we look at that exact same bow but with fizz runes, I go down to 294. So it's an even bigger increase if the bow doesn't have crit damage already, and we add crit damage to it. And then I wanted to see, well, what changes if we have a bow with hardly any crit chance? Because my bow has a pretty good amount of crit chance. It's got a 4.43. So what happens if we test it with no crit chance, or I put it to 1.43? So if we look at a crit damage bow with 1.43, our full DPS is 300k, and with low crit chance and fizz runes, it's 287. If that was a bit confusing, the lesson is that if you're playing this build, no matter what kind of bow you have, basically, if you put crit damage into your bow, it's going to give you more damage than if you're using fizz runes. So across the builds, at least for the crit version, use the crit damage runes in your bow, not the fizz damage runes. It'll net you out more damage, and it'll enable the build to be stronger. Now, the real kicker of why this is so great is because right now, getting a bow with crit chance and crit damage is really difficult and really expensive. So if I type in a 400 DPS bow with 4% crit chance, there's ones for 4 and 5 divines, which is pretty awesome. If we type in that same thing, but with a crit damage bonus, just any crit damage bonus, we go from 4 divines to 55 divines. So it is incredibly expensive to get crit damage bonus already on your bow, but it's not expensive to just find something with good crit chance. So now what we can do on the build, because of the changes to the runes, is we can go for bows that have just good crit chance, and then all of the bows on the marketplace just have fizz runes on them. But we can buy these fizz bows and change them into crit bows, and then you can get a high DPS bow with crit chance and crit damage, where before these rune changes, that was really hard to do because most people sell bows already full socketed, and we couldn't swap sockets out. And so this is a huge quality of life improvement for either the lightning arrow or the ice shot build, because now we can actually properly invest into our crit damage, which is really nice. Now, the best way to understand all of this yourself is obviously going to be putting in your own build into Path of Building, or if you want to save time, will have my Path of Building planner linked down below, and then you can just copy and paste your own bow or a bow you plan to buy to see which one is going to work better for you. The reason crit damage bonus on your bow is so valuable, by the way, you might be why is it so good versus just fizz, is because crit damage on your bow is multiplicative, whereas it is additive anywhere else. So on your bow, it's 2 crit damage bonus, which is a multiplier, versus on your quiver or in your skill tree, it's increased crit damage bonus. So for example, if I take this bow off with 60% crit damage bonus, I go from a 613% crit damage bonus, if I lose that, down to 383. So even though I have 50 to 60% crit damage bonus, I'm losing 200 plus actual crit damage bonus because on our bow is multiplicative. Now, as I said in the previous clip, you are going to want to find a high DPS bow. Your end goal is still going to be to find something with crit damage bonus on it. I was doing a bit more testing in Path of Building, and I found that a bow with crit damage, if it's really high crit damage bonus, is equivalent to about 100 DPS, or 100 DPS bow. So if you have a 300 DPS bow with no crit damage bonus, or a 200 DPS bow with a high crit damage bonus, they're about equivalent. But obviously right now, as I stated, it is a lot cheaper to find bows with just crit chance, and then you can add that crit damage. But to clarify, you still are going to want crit damage bonus on your bow at the end game. It'll just save you a lot of currency finding one without it currently, and then adding the crit damage bonus on your runes. And you can even try to get a corrupted bow, for example, because corrupted bows can roll 3 sockets, and you can still add your change the sockets on a corrupted bow, so you can get a bow with 3 sockets and then add up to 36% crit damage bonus. I think that's going to be pretty sick as well. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video as a quick little update to the build, because this is something that you can do to find cheaper bows and make them stronger for our build. And yeah, guys, I'll have a bunch more updates for y'all about the build coming in the future. But yeah, guys, I will catch y'all in the next one. Hope you enjoyed the video. You can find a link down to my Path of Building and a link to download Path of Building. So there's all that for y'all down in the description. Catch y'all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.